Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at a very brilliant game that was played at the Premier League, the National Chess League. This game was played during the last weekend of the league. It's a game between Michuki Francis of Knights Chess Academy against James Emenikor, and I forget the club that he's playing for. But this game was just brilliant. When I was looking for a title for this game, I didn't really even know what to name it because I didn't know if I should upload this game as a game or a tutorial on how to play chess. Because the way he played it was just beautiful. The grinding of the position, the slowness of it, the brilliant positional play, the awareness of what I think Gotham Chess calls danger levels, and just everything that he did in this game, in my opinion, was just nearly perfect. So let's dive into it and see what happened. So he opened with pawn to c4, a good game for English Open, English the English opening, a good game for people who play the English opening. So pawn to c4, and James Emenikor employed the Dutch opening. Knight to c3, knight to f6, pawn to g3, pawn to e6, now pawn to d4, pawn to c6, bishop to g3, and now pawn to d5, just striking in the center. Knight to f3, pawn, bishop to e7, castles, and now pawn to a3. Just stopping any bishop to b4 ideas, maybe, because knight to e4 is an expected move. You can pretty much expect it from this position onwards, and you don't really want him to capture your knight on c3 before he does that. So we play pawn to a3 just to stop the bishop from coming in. Knight b d7, and now pawn to b4 because he's allowed you to do it. But then here, James Emenikor plays knight to e4, which I think is a little bit premature. You can maybe try and capture the pawn on c4 first, and now maybe try to jump in with your knight, bring the other knight to f6, and have this eternal control of the center. Plus, if he allows you, or maybe if he doesn't do anything about it, you can push your pawn to b5 and just have like an incredible defense, or an incredible grip of the center in this position with a very beautiful pawn on c4. So instead, James Emenikor played knight to e4 immediately, and now queen to c2, knight to b6, now attacking the pawn to c4, pawn on c4, and Francis, or Frank, we call him Frank for the ease of pronunciation in this video, ended up taking on d5. Very good move here to play is pawn to c5, but it's not like aesthetically pleasing to allow the other knight to come to c4 and allowing your opponent to have these scary knights in the center. But it's not really that hard to dislodge them. You can play something like maybe knight takes, pawn takes on f5, and as bad as this looks, you can even play knight to e5, or instead knight to d2, and you have this you see the knights that were in the center like a moment ago, at the moment they're just being chased out, and he can't really do anything about it other than trade the knights and just continuing with the game. You can argue that he has a very strong pawn on e4, but then that's just, you have to give something to get something. So instead, Frank ended up trading in the center. Now knight takes on c3, queen takes on c3, and knight takes on d5. Queen went to d3, bishop to d6, and now bishop to b2, bishop d7, knight to e5, bishop takes, knight pawn takes rather, and now queen to e7. Frank strikes in the center immediately with pawn to e4, and you can't really do anything rather than trade, because if you try pushing the pawn, you lose the knight. So pawn takes, bishop takes, and now pawn to g6. It's an argument here. Can you do you play pawn to h6 or pawn to g6? In my opinion, I could have gone for pawn to h6, and there was such an argument in one of Agad Mata's videos. He was really trying to try and argue and see if it's a is it like a style of play that differs or maybe differentiates people between playing pawn to g6 or pawn to h6. But I'd rather play pawn to h6 in my opinion, because then it doesn't really allow your opponent to get ideas of sacrificing on g6 or something. But then, to each their own. So James Emenikor played pawn to g6, and now rook a to d1, just connecting the rooks. Maybe someday when you bring your bishop back to c1 or a1, you can have your rooks connected. And now rook to e7. Also, just uh, hinting that you might one day try and undermine the strength of this knight at the center, maybe push the pawn first. And if he tries to capture, now we can win the knight. If he doesn't, we can just destroy the pawn structure on the queen side and have a fabulous endgame from there. So rook to f7, bishop went back to c1, just preparing to throw it to h6, maybe g5. And James Emenikor prevented the bishop going to h6, but Michuki played bishop to g5, queen g7, queen to d4, just adding more defense to the pawn, and also preparing at some moment bishop to f6, because then if you take, we can just take back and our queen will be supporting the pawn. First of all, you have to eliminate one of the defenders of the f6 square, but it's going good for white so far. Now pawn to a6, which I didn't really understand what was the purpose of that move. Maybe you're trying to move the rook and you don't want the pawn to be left hanging, but then, I think it's a waste of tempo. It's a waste of tempo, yes, but I don't really think you have any other moves. Maybe try and push this pawn, but then this becomes a backward pawn. You can argue that the bishop is there to defend it, but it's very hard to play. It's okay, not very, but it's becoming hard to play the position. So in my opinion, I could have just played the rook immediately there. And if he captures on a7, now you bring the other bishop back and try and play that position from then. So instead, James Emenikor pushed the pawn, and now rook to d3, just preparing some nasty ideas. Also, a rook lift is always nice to see in the position. You can maybe double up, or maybe bring it to f3 at some point, and support that idea of playing bishop to f6 much better. And James Emenikor continued with his plan to double up the rooks. And now bishop takes on d5, pawn takes back, and now bishop to f6, with the idea that we mentioned before, that you can't really grab it, because then we just play pawn takes back, and in this position you're going to that's going to be like you're going to be an exchange down. It doesn't really look good, because then the rook can always come to e3. We can double up easily and bring our rooks to the 7th rank, and it's going to be a brutal end game for black to defend. So instead, James Emenikor just moved the queen away, and now pawn to g4, trying to close down and attack the queen more. And James Emenikor tried to launch a queenside counterplay with pawn to c5, which Frank just took the pawn. And after bishop to b5, I think this is a position that I was talking about when you talk about like danger levels, or you talk about like looking at the position, seeing does my opponent really have a threat, or do I have a more quicker threat in this position? Not more quicker, a quicker threat rather in this position than what he is doing, because then bishop to b5 looks like it's attacking both rooks nicely, and you can't really save both of them. But instead of trying to save the rooks, Michuki went immediately for the attack with pawn to g5. Queen moved, and now he pushed the other pawn. So pawn to g5 was a really good move, because then as much as it's coming with a tempo on the queen, it's helping to defend the bishop on f6, very important piece in the attack, and also preparing this pawn push. And it doesn't really matter what James might want to do to these rooks. It's just completely lost for him in this position. So he tried to play rook to c7, move out of the way of the attack of this pawn, because again, even if you have this attack on the rooks, it's not like immediately important to capture either of them, because the only time it's okay, in my opinion, the only time maybe it's advisable to capture is when he tries to save one of them, because when he moves one of the rooks, he's going to, if you allow him one more tempo, he's going to move the other and you won't be attacking any of the pieces again. So immediately he tries to move one of the rooks, you just go ahead and capture the other. So very good play for James Emenikor, and it will be brilliant play if the position wasn't lost for him. So Michuki just went for queen takes on d5, and James Emenikor had to take out the bishop on f6 because it was a very important attacking piece in the position. Because if you don't do anything, we are going to push this pawn to e7 with a discovery on the queen, and you can't. I don't see how you continue to defend that position. Maybe try and play rook to f7, but then anything there is winning. Even a check on the back rank, I think, is just completely winning that position. So instead, sorry about that, I'm a little bit under the weather. So instead of trying to defend, trying to calculate and defend this position, just took out the bishop, and after pawn takes back, queen takes, rook takes, it was in this position that James Emenikor resigned the game, because you can't really defend mate on the back rank. If you try and defend it, then you're going just to promote one of these pawns. You can't really capture the rook on f1 immediately, because then this check is just mate. And what else can you do in this position? I mean, there's nothing really left to play for. And it was in this position that James Emenikor resigned the game. Very brilliant game from Michuki Francis. Game was, I mean, brilliant. Look at the positional play that he does. It just admired. Okay, I'm an admirer of positional play myself. That's why I think this game was just perfect. The way he just grinded the positions, just beautiful from Michuki. And I think they won this game. This game was just brilliant. They won the match, I think. And yeah, brilliant game. So that was the game. I'm really sorry about the videos. I'm not very enthusiastic about them. I'm not really recording them as best as I could because I'm a little bit under the weather. But I really had to show you guys these games. The games were just beautiful. This and the previous game that I've posted between Anthony Kionga and Victor Ngani that happened during the Mombasa Open. So if you enjoyed the game, remember to like it. Subscribe if you haven't, because most of the people who watch this channel haven't subscribed yet. And yeah, thank you for sticking around this long. And we're going to post more videos. Yeah, I think we're going to post more videos, and going to especially look at the games that were played during the Muranga Opens. And if you haven't checked out a game that was played between Garang, I can't remember his name, Peter Majur, I think, against Panchol during the Mombasa Open, you should really check out that game. Was insane. Brilliant game. So yeah, thanks for sticking around this much. Hope you have an amazing rest of your week.